last week in our last project. So first, we learned how to broadcast events from one sprite to another. We did this using the, so this was, we did this by creating a new message called mail. This was done by going to the events tab and dragging the when I receive block or the broadcast block into the script area, then clicking the drop-down menu and a new message to create a new one. And we saw that when we broadcast a message using the broadcast block, every sprite that has the when I receive block for that message automatically fires off their instructions whenever the broadcast block is run. So this is a very interesting, a very useful feature when you need to, for example, synchronize actions between different sprites, make different sprites do the same actions, or make different sprites do different actions at once whenever a certain event occurs. And the second topic that we explored last week was lists. So last week we saw that lists are pretty much like variables. They're also found in the variables tab at the left side of the screen. And under the variables, you can see the make a list button. The new list window is exactly the same as the new variable window. But there are a lot more blocks for the lists than there are for the variables. For example, we can add elements to lists. We can delete a certain element of a list. We can delete all of the elements of the list and make it back into an empty list, and so on. And if we click on the check mark next to a list block, we're also going to see the corresponding list pop up on the stage. So for example, if the checkbox next to the Y positions block is checked, then the Y positions list shows up on the stage. And using this Y position window, we can add, delete, or edit elements in the list. We can add elements using the small plus button. We can edit elements. And you can delete elements. So lists are very useful when you want to store a large number of values in a single package so that you can easily access them for later. And we explored this a bit. We learned a bit how to draw shapes on the backdrops. So before we learned to do this, as I've mentioned, we could only get new backdrops by importing them from the Scratch library. And although it has many backdrops to choose from, sometimes we need to create our own backdrops, especially if they're for things like our custom platformer game.
But for the Y position variable, does it need to be all sprites or only this sprite only?
So the Y position list is actually for all sprites, and the X positions list is for the pufferfish only. But I sort of messed up when I was creating this template. The Y positions should have also been for the pufferfish only. So the next thing, yes, drawing backdrops. So we drew, I'm going to draw simple shapes on the backdrop last week using the paintbrush tool. So the backdrops, as we've seen before, can be accessed by clicking on the stage and clicking the backdrops tab. So for our current platformer project, there are 3 backdrops, which represent the 3 levels. So last week, the paintbrush tool was the one that we used to create the shapes. So to access this, we clicked on the brush tool at the left side of the screen in the backdrops editor. We changed the fill color so that we got the color red. So this was done using the color, saturation, and brightness sliders. The color indicates which color of the rainbow it is. Saturation is how close to white, and brightness is how close to black. So for red, the color is either 0 or 100. They're the same. The saturation is 100, and brightness is 100. And if we have the paintbrush tool selected, we can draw whatever shapes we want on the backdrop, and it will show up on the stage. And we can use the undo button to undo changes that we didn't want to make. So that's how we paint backdrops. And we also learned a bit how to make the sprite respond to the backdrop. So in the player sprite, last week, we made the player go back to the bottom left corner of the screen whenever it touched the red color in the backdrop. So this was the code we wrote to accomplish this. So we made a forever loop, and in the loop, we added an if statement. If touching color red, then go to the bottom left corner. And the touching color block was a new block that we learned. It is from the sensing tab. You can drag that into your script area. And the diamond shaped indicates that it's also a yes or no block. So one thing that's unusual about this block is that it has this type of slot here. So this type of slot isn't a yes or no block, and it isn't a number or text block either. So this slot is a color slot. So when you click on it, you see the same 3 sliders that we saw when we were adjusting the paintbrush color for the backdrop painting. So if we want to get the color red, if we want to make the sprite sense whether it's touching the color red, we did what we did for the backdrop brush. We set the color to either 0 or 100, the saturation to 100, and the brightness to 100. So if this color matches the color that the sprite is touching, then the touching color block will give us a yes value. And this is how it's used. So that's pretty much all that we covered last week. To repeat, these 2 are the blocks that we use when we make the sprite send or receive broadcasting messages. These are an ordered list of values that work like variables, but one list can contain many values, as we saw just before. You create a list, you click on the make a list block, the make a list button in the variables tab, and you enter a name for the list. And you can also choose whether it's for all sprites or if the list is for this sprite only. just like we did for the variables. And here are the lists in the stage, on the stage. And here's the backdrop editor, where you can use the brush to add colors to the backdrop. And we just discussed this. How do I make colors on the backdrop? We use the color drop-down menu, and we use the 3 sliders, color, saturation, and brightness, to specify a color. And we use the touching color block to sense the stage. And to recap, when we make a variable for one sprite only, we can see this if we show the variable on the stage. So if the variable is for one sprite only, the name of the sprite will be added just before the variable name on the stage, so that we know it's for this sprite only. Otherwise, if the variable is for all sprites, the only thing that will show up on the variable indication in the stage is the variable name. And can anyone answer this? So a couple of weeks ago, we learned how to make our custom blocks using the MyBlocks tool in Scratch. So how do you add inputs in a MyBlock, in a custom block? Ended.
So you go to the My Blocks tab, and then you like press the Make a Block button, and then you could like name your block to what you want your block to do, and then you have to add in this number or text slot or something. I forgot why.
Yes, that's right. So the number or text block, the number or text button is tells Scratch to add an input to your block, for your block. So this input shows up as a slot when you use the custom block. For example, in the block that I created earlier for this template, there's a number or text slot on the block. And when this block is run, Scratch goes to the define block for this custom block. And the number or text value that we enter here becomes the number or text input that we see here. And in a custom block, the number or text input is always given a name, so that when we're defining the block, when we're telling the block what to do, we can refer to the name of the input. So for example, if we name the block my new block, and we add a number or text input, and we call the input my input, we're going to get a define block like this. And since we specified the input as an input value called my input, we can use this my input throughout our block definition. And since we made this a number or text block, we can use this block in number or text situations, like, for example, move a certain number of steps. And when we run our new block, our new custom block called my new block, and we give the my input slot a name, a value, for example, 100, and we run it, the block does whatever we tell it to do here. So that's about it for the my blocks feature. So This is just a diagram of what I've just explained. So now, since this is the last class of this course, we're going to first take a look at all the projects that we've done so far so that we can do a brief review of the concepts that we learned. So first, in our very first week, if you can remember, we made this project. So we used the cat that's built in with Scratch. The cat is there when we create a new project. And we simply made it walk around the stage and bounce back and forth between the two edges. So in this first project, we used we mainly learned how to use the motion blocks. For example, the go-to block, the point and direction block, and so on. We also learned how to use costumes a bit. So we learned the switch costume to block, which switches the sprite's costume, and the next costume block. And in our second week, our project became a bit more complicated. So this was our shooter project. The player can move around using the user's keyboard input, and the player can also fire a ball that the player will aim as a butterfly, and the butterfly responds if the player hit it with the ball. So, does anyone remember what new blocks or concepts we had to learn in this project so that we can make this work? Dylan?
How the player responds, like if it hits, if the player shoots a fireball and the fireball hits their flag, the butterfly will spawn the out thingy.
Yes. So, the first thing we had to do is we had to learn how to make the player be controlled by the keyboard. So we learned a few new blocks in the events tab. The most important one was the when key pressed block, which fires off a script whenever a key is pressed. So here we used this block twice, one for the up arrow to move up, and one for the down arrow to move down. And we had many sprites, unlike our first project, where we had only one sprite. So butterfly, as we can see here, we told this sprite how to move by itself. And we also used the pick random block to make a game a bit more fun and less predictable by introducing some randomness into the butterfly's movement. We learned how to use the rotate block, the turn a certain number of degrees block, and we also made this sprite sense other sprites using the touching block. The beach ball also is controlled by the player and fires whenever the player presses the space key. And it also senses whether it's touching the butterfly or touching the edge so that it can move accordingly. So our second project was definitely a bit more complicated than our first one. But in our third project, we introduced some even more variety. So have the player here that's also being controlled by the keyboard. There are sprites that respond to how close the player is from the sprite. And there's a fruit ladder which keep falling down from the ceiling if the player gets to this stage. And the player can see how many fruit platters she's eaten by going to by looking at the score indicator at the top left corner of the screen. And as well, the player can switch between different backdrops just by walking between them. And when the character was first climbing down the stairs, we had to play the footsteps noise. So does anyone remember what we had to learn in order to get this to work? So first, we added a lot of movement blocks and repeat blocks to the start of the script so that the character would move down the stairs correctly. And once it gets to the next scene, we had to import a new sprite to the scene. So Scratch has no lamppost sprite built in, so we had to download a picture of the lamppost from the internet, and then we had to add this picture of the sprite to Scratch. And we learned how to add the picture as a sprite. We learned how to make the sprite sense how close it is to the character using the distance to block. We learned how to import different backdrops into our project using the choose a backdrop tool. And we used cloning for the fruit platter so that many copies of the fruit platter would fall down from the ceiling whenever the player gets to that stage, and the player would be able to eat the fruit platters. And as well, we learned how to use variables. So in this project, we only had one variable. It was called score, and it's for all sprites. And score basically just keeps track of how many fruit platters the character has eaten. And we did that using the set score to 0 block when the green flag is first clicked, and the change score by 1 block whenever the sprite eats a fruit platter. So that's all there is for reading. So today we're going to finish up the project that we've been looking at in our last 2 classes. So we're going to continue on looking at how we can create our own backdrops. We're also going to look at how we can make the character respond to colors in the backdrop. So both of these are topics that we've already looked a bit at last week. But we're going to continue adding colors to our backdrops and making the sprite sense those colors this week. And finally, there will be about 20 minutes at the end of this class where you can show us all the projects that you've created in the past in this class, if you want, so that we can, well, share our creations. So our project is essentially the same as the one that we've been doing for the 2 past classes. So again, here's how the project will look. So there are all these levels. There are the red and purple colors. The red color makes you go to the bottom left corner so that you have to start over, and the purple color makes you bounce. So before we get started, does anyone have any questions? If not, oh, Lyndon.
How do you make the variables respond to the key pressed and stuff?
Oh. So to do this, we simply use the when key pressed block and the variables blocks. For example, when space key pressed, tell y to 0. So this block would make the cat float in air whenever the space key is pressed. I'm not sure whether you want to do that. So, but this is how you make a variable respond to the keyboard.
So they know those variables. That's why.
Excuse me. I didn't catch. I didn't catch what you said.
So they know those variables. So then they could like make it like that. But how does variables react on stage? I only saw them change on stage, not make the character move and stuff, and go to places. And yeah.
Oh, those aren't variables. They're actually colors on the stage. So so in this project, there's the purple color and there's the red color.
I mean, why then do we have the set xl y to 0 make him float?
Oh, that's just something that I just added in the project to demonstrate. It's not part of the project. All right. Are there any more questions? Okay, let's get started. So you should have done a few additions to the project last week, but I'm going to add. I've actually added something new to the project, a new sprite to the project that's going to happen in the last level. It's this, the confetti. So because I added something new to the project, I think we can again have everyone make a new copy of this project. If you didn't make any changes to it in your own time, the project is here and you can make a copy of this project by going to the link that I've just put in the chat.
How do you get past the first level?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you jump whenever there's red. So does everyone have this ready?
Yeah, I got it ready.
Is everyone good now? Okay. So I'm going to make a copy of this project myself. So today we're going to add some extra colors to our project. We're going to look at, so last week we've already added the red color and made it sense that color. So today we're also going to add the purple color to our backdrops. And if you remember from our demonstration, the purple color will make the sprite jump. To do this, we click on the stage, we go to the backdrops tab, and we're going to see our first backdrop open. So what we have here in the backdrops editor is basically what we have on the stage. So this is what is going to show up on the stage. So we're still going to use the paintbrush tool, the one that looks like a brush. But we're going to change the fill color. So it's not red anymore. It's going to be purple. So to make it purple, just raise the slider until the color is purple. The color that I have for purple is 81. So purple is 81, 100, 100. So once we have the purple color, we want to make sure we use exactly the same purple for all the bouncy parts, because Scratch is very precise when it comes to detecting colors. And even if it's a bit off from purple, for example, if it's 80, 100, 100, and the color sensing block is set to 81, 100, 100, it won't work. So make sure what color you set it to be is whatever you want it to be for your entire project. And then click somewhere else to close the color selection window. So now you can paint on your backdrop editor window. For example, we can do something like this to make the sprite jump. Yeah, so I'm going to do this. Now we've added the color to the backdrop, but we're going to make the sprite do something when it touches the color too. Let's go to the player sprite at the in the sprites panel, and we're going to look for the scripts that I've just shown you, which should be around the top of the scripts. So it looks like this. There's forever loop, and there's a sensing block called touching color red. Has everyone found this?
I found it.
Good. So we're going to add one more if block. After this if-then block to sense the purple color. So the if block is in the control tab. We drag this right under our existing if block. And we drag a touching color sensing block into the diamond-shaped hole in this block. And instead of red, we're going to call it purple. So 81, 100, 100. So here's something cool about Scratch. You can choose the color by dragging around the sliders until you have the right color. But you can also use the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool is this button here. This button at the bottom side of the pop-up window. Once you click on it, the stage will be highlighted. And if you move your mouse over the stage, it will show you a color bubble. And you can move your mouse around until you found the color that you want to add. And once you've found it, just click where your mouse is, and the color will become whatever color that is. So we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it at 81, 100, 100. So if we touch this color, then we want to jump. So how do we jump? In our variables tab, we have quite a few variables here. So if we remember, the val y variable is the variable that indicates how fast it's going up or down. So whenever it's touching the purple color, we want it to go up. We want it to jump. So we use the set variable to block. And instead of x, we change it to val y. So val y is how fast it's going up or down. And when it's jumping, we want it to go up. So we say something like set val y to maybe 15. Oh, and we don't have the right color. Now we do. Right. Yeah, so the eyedropper tool is better. It gives a more precise color than using the color slider. So yeah. So this is the basically this is what it looks like now. So whenever the cat goes on the purple color, it jumps. Is everyone caught up with this part?
Not caught up.
I'm done.
Good.
I just have a question.
Yes, go
Do
ahead.
we actually have to make it like yours?
You can make it. Yeah, good question. You can make it whatever you want. So the color can be whatever you want, and you just have to make sure that you pick the same color for everywhere you want to use it.
And
Good. So once we've made the cat sense the colors, we can go ahead and also add in the colors for the others, for the other stages, for the other backdrops. So this is backdrop number 1. We can go to backdrop number 2 and also add in colors. We're going to start with red. So this is the stage in the backdrops tab, and in the second backdrop, the one labeled 2.
I have a
So here-
question.
Yes,
So how do you make that pufferfish go to the place, like that top place, since it's at the bottom?
yeah. If you actually play the game, it will go to the top once we get to the second stage. So this is because remember when we brought up the X positions and Y positions lists for the pufferfish? So these two lists, we've stored the X and Y positions of the pufferfish for every level. So for level 1, the X position is 210, the Y position is minus 150. And for level 2, the X position is minus 29 and the Y position is minus 75. So that's where we store the X and Y positions, and we use the go-to block to make it go to the X and Y positions stored in the lists. So when the message advance is broadcasted, every time the player reaches the pufferfish, the go to X and Y block is called and makes it go to the X and Y positions that are in the list. And that's how the pufferfish goes there. So back to our backdrop. Now we're going to select the brush tool, the paintbrush tool, at the left side of the screen. And we're going to make sure the red color in the fill block, in the fill button is selected. So this should be red. And now we can paint red whatever we want. And it will show up on the stage just like we expected. But this time, we're going to add the red to one of the to the top of one of the black pillars, for example. For example, we can add it to here and here. We're going to test it. There's the red on the stage. And as we've expected, the cat goes to the bottom left corner whenever it touches the red. Oh, I made it a bit too hard. Yeah, I think I'm going to delete one of those red colors. So if you want to delete a paintbrush stroke on the stage, you use the the arrow tool, the select tool at the left side of the screen in the backdrop editor. And we can click on one of those red strokes and press the delete button to delete it. And now we're going to learn something new. We're not going to use the paintbrush anymore. We're going to use the shapes tool in the backdrops editor to make the red obstacles. So if we click on the button that looks like a square at the bottom of the tool picker, we're going to see two buttons at the top. One is fill and one is outline. So we can leave the fill as red and the outline as blank. And you can drag our mouse around the stage to see what that would do. It draws a rectangle. We can draw one here and here. So here's the stage, the updated backdrop. And that's that. We're also going to add the purple color. So let's go back to the backdrop editor. And we're going to use the shade of purple that worked for us last time, which was 79, 100, 100.
From what I remember, that was 81.
Yeah, let me see what it was. It was 80.
Oh,
81.
Yeah, it was 80. But you might have done something different for your own project. So we're going to use the rectangle tool again. Make sure the fill is purple, 80, 100, 100. And then draw some more bouncy rectangles on the stage. Oh. That should work now. And finally, we're going to customize the last backdrop a bit. So backdrops can contain drawings and shapes, but it can also contain text. If you want to add text to the backdrop, you can use the text tool of the backdrop editor, the one that looks like a T. It's the letter T. You can click somewhere on the backdrop to add text, for example, like this. or you can edit existing text like this. So we want to make this text purple to make it bouncy. To do this, we select the text, and we go to the fill button, and we make it purple. We make the brightness 100, the saturation 100, and the color 80. So now the text is purple. We're going to go through our platformer one more time. Okay. And now the text is also bouncy. So now we see that the sprite, the touching color block, can sense any color on the stage, even if it's text. So that's pretty much it for our project. Does anyone
Can I
have
say
any questions?
something?
Yes, Lyndon.
Can I show my projects?
Yes. So now it's time to share our projects. You can share your project for this for the platformer one that we just did, or we can share a project that you did before. For example, the
Can I share the projects I did by myself?
that would be great. You can use the share screen button at the bottom of the screen, the green button.
Can I share screen right now?
Yes.
Just wait a minute. So this is what I made, but I don't really know what it does. It just types random numbers. Okay, I got to get the list over here. Oh no, where's that list? I forgot what I was doing. See, the list isn't there.
Yeah, perhaps you dragged it out of the stage by accident.
Oh, then I'll make a new list. Oops. Good. Now I just gotta drag it open. And then, so now I just gotta, okay. So then just wait a minute. I got to change it.
Yeah.
Just wait a minute. Cancel. Okay, so then this thing just adds a random number. This thing minuses a random number. See?
Yeah, that's really
Adds in
good.
a random number. And then this thing minuses one. And I do not know what happened, but I happened to add pick random 1 to 110,000.
Yeah, that's very good.
And I also have this, the other one, which I made is this one. See this one?
Yes.
So I made this one to basically show how you could get your score. Okay, I think I got that one maybe. Okay, this is hard. Just to tell you, I will stop this and then wait a minute.
Yeah, that's really good.
Just wait me a minute. I think I know something.
Yeah, we're going to move to another person now because
Okay.
we want other people to share too. But it looks like you've learned a few things on Scratch by yourself. For example, the mouse input, and you've also learned a bit
I
more
learned
about
that
lists.
from other Scratchers when I looked in their code.
Oh, that's really good, and that's also a very helpful way to learn new things in Scratch. So great job. Does anyone else want to share what they did on Scratch, either in one of our projects or somewhere else? Sean.
Lyndon found this video game about Minecraft in Scratch.
Oh, cool.
I'll search it, I guess.
No, your own projects.
Yeah.
Well, I just to tell that.
Is there anything you made by yourself, or that you built on someone else's code that you would like to share? So here's one thing that I've worked on in the past. This was quite a long time ago, and it's sort of related to this platformer project, but not really.
Why couldn't you just like bookmark it?
Here it is.
Why not just
Oh.
what is that?
So this is designed for 2 players. That one player would control the game using the WASD keys, and the other player would control it using the arrow keys. And this is basically a racing game. And
That was weird.
Wow.
a bit too loud. I'm going to make some changes to that. And does anyone have a coding experience outside of Scratch? Just to ask. Lyndon?
I've gone on Tinker before.
Oh, that's really nice.
Although I didn't create any projects, since it doesn't even have the most
stuff like yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sean, could you repeat that?
Like if you use Scratch stuff like in Tinker.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the My Blocks tab, just to tell you.
So you can't make your own block. It's just learning.
So there are so Scratch is a really good platform for building games and animations, but there are also many more programming languages and other ways to program outside of Scratch. So there are text programming languages which don't use blocks, but you can but you type all the code in. So those can look a bit more much more confusing than a Scratch project oftentimes, but they can allow you to do much more. And there are also programming languages that are for specific types of programs. There are ones for AI, which is artificial intelligence. There are ones for analyzing large sets of data so that you can use them for real life applications like statistics. And there are ones that are specifically for games. So I'm going to show you a video of a project that obviously I did not make on Scratch, but using a platform called Unreal Engine. Where is it? Yeah, right here. So this is a project that I've made pretty recently using the Unreal Engine platform, which is specifically for 3D game programming. So if you're interested in programming, I'm pretty sure that you can make something like this, or even much better than this in the future.
That looks scary.
Yes. Okay.
And fast forward a couple of minutes.
It's like this game called Valorant.
Yeah, I've heard of that game.
It's basically the same. Just you could, like, I mean, change your guns and stuff.
So Unreal Engine is a platform with a built-in system for three-dimensional graphics. So you can actually pretty similar in many ways to Scratch. Unreal Engine also uses blocks, but they're a bit more complicated than Scratch. And there are lots more things to customize. And oh, and there's also the airplane.
Why does it land like that? So what are you doing?
Wow.
And you can
That
also
looks
make something
literally
like
like you're controlling it.
yes, it does. So as you can see from this example, there are many more things that you can make with programming in Scratch, but also out of Scratch. So even in Scratch, there are a lot of things that we haven't explored yet. And as Lyndon brought up, you can continue exploring Scratch and ways to build new projects using the Scratch community, which are basically projects, all the projects that people made and shared on Scratch, so that other people can remix and see how they work. And if you're also if you're interested in the future, there are many more opportunities to program and create new projects even outside of Scratch. So I hope this course has given you a good start to programming, and and that it has made you interested in programming. Since this is our last class of this course, we won't be having another class next Friday, but I hope you can continue exploring the world of programming by your own.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Bye.